Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the StarLadder StarSeries Season 3 online stage. We're onwards to the third match of the day. The first two were ridiculously quick. Were they not, James Kostesic?
They were pretty quick.
Is this Kostesic or
Kostesic?
Kostesic. Oh, my bad. Okay.
Okay.
Were they not, James Kostesic?
Yeah, they were extremely fast. A lot of it just seemed like people pairing up against not what they're targeting, right? We see, last game, for example, StarSeries was not ready for aggro decks. RDU had aggro decks. Sometimes that's how it goes. Where, if StarSeries happened to have, like a Quest Warrior-oriented lineup, he would have just destroyed all of RDU's decks. So a lot of the matchups in the current metagame really polarized, and that's what's causing these extremely quick series. The players aren't bad or anything, and no one's just like outplaying the other guy. It's just, well, in deck creation, you got the wrong one. One guy chose rock, the other guy chose paper.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the big things, in the current environment that matters a lot is mostly now the deck building is where things are determined. There are a lot of, especially in Conquest, where you've got to pick a specific strategy to go with. You're basically creating three identical decks with, across different classes, trying to go for the same idea to target something. And it basically leads to deck building being the most important factor in your matches, unless you're, mid-range versus mid-range or control versus control, in which case then things are not as polarized, and then it's a matter of figuring out how to extract value. And we see here Xixo on the Druid Mage Paladin plan that we saw a little bit earlier up against Orange. Xixo with the high aggression.
All right, we saw the Secret Mage from Xixo. We saw him having Quest Rogue, and we also saw mid-range Murloc Paladin. The Druid could go either way with those classes. He could be going for, a Jade Druid, or he could be going for the aggro token. I suspect more the aggro token, as they all just kind of complement each other to do pretty well at shutting down some of the mid-range decks. But it wouldn't surprise me as well, just the Jade Druid, because the Jade Druid works so great in alongside the Quest Rogue to help just target out control.
Yeah, and you can have like two chances at it to isolate them.
Yeah, and on the other side of things, DrHippi was playing Jade Druid. I believe he's playing Miracle Rogue, and it was the N'Zoth Paladin. So I don't remember his priest too well, but it wasn't a Silence Priest. I think it was more of the traditional kind of control priest. So he has like a very slow lineup that's designed to punish control decks, right? So you get the Jade Druid in there alongside the Miracle Rogue. These are decks that can line up fairly well against control, and then N'Zoth Paladin, obviously super late game to try and beat control. And he's going to get probably steamrolled by aggro decks.
So we see DrHippi on the Miracle Rogue playing with Eater of Secrets. So this guy was targeting Secret Mage, Freeze Mage, name it, and Xixo does have it in the lineup. So if DrHippi is going full anti-mage, we could see Eater of Secrets everywhere and trying to get some tempo back. But the thing is, Eater of Secrets, while good, it feels like good enough. I think the saving grace of Rogue right now, this specific list that DrHippi's running, is the comeback of Questing Adventurer. That guy kind of took a break with the expansion when it came out. Everybody played Plant Rogue and kind of forgot about this little buddy that grew infinitely. But now that mostly aggro decks are, faced against, you can get blowouts because no one has a removal to handle the questing.
Yeah. Surprised he drops the patches here on turn 1. I was thinking maybe he does some sort of coin questing, coin pirate prep something kind of line. Where he values the board control immediately, and that's going to get really farmed by this Mark the Lotus. Obviously, you can't expect that, but it lowers the value of his questing adventure a little bit in his hand.
Yeah, and Xixo is going to try to prevent where the daggers go, right? So kill one of the 1/1s with the healthy minion to prevent the triple trade into a healthy minion. And DrHippi now, barring something like a backstab play with SI on the coin or Blood Mage Thalnos play with some kind of prep fan, Xixo's not too worried about anything coming his way. And DrHippi has the opportunity here to go for the questing if he wants to do it early and just prep out that Eviscerate, but it's kind of a weak turn overall. It doesn't feel particularly good.
Probably just has to dagger and double trade into the Crab, removing the Beast synergy. Marquis of Charge is a card they do run in aggro token Druid.
Yeah. That seems about right. I think there's not much to do with the mana he's got. So he's got a ton of mana available, but nothing to do with it. So the dagger definitely seems better. Plus, it also develops a second ping for the future that you can combine with, Phantom Knives, Backstab, depending on in which order the cards come out. But Xixo is going to capitalize on this and just develop harder onto the board as hard as he can. Oh, wow. He can just go super wide if he wants to, but...
Seems good. Get both
Sure.
those minions out there. Try and kill your opponent before they can make a large questing.
Yep.
Buff in any way that increases attack damage. Or stickiness to the board.
Divine Shield's pretty good.
Divine Shield trades with the dagger.
Yeah.
+1/+1, man.
That's where the backstab protection is at.
Mm-hmm. Stats and damage. Let's go.
Yeah, and there's already 10 damage on board for Xixo starting next turn. That Blood Mage Thalnos with Fen and Knives would be good, but as it stands, you can still get a good, questing double coin Thalnos prep of this turn to make this questing as big as possible. But it's not like you're still looking to trade, and so if Xixo comes up with any more damage in the following turns, you're going to look a little bit rough.
Yeah, double coin of this, hold back the Thalnos, try and save it for that Fan of Knives.
Yep.
Or is he going to go
I actually don't mind it. The problem is like your questing needs to be big enough to trade repeatedly, and I think if you hold the Thalnos, you're preventing the questing from being guaranteed to stick.
Sure.
And
you're kind of all in on it.
Yeah, you're pretty much all in at any point here in the game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You draw an extra card from the Thalnos, so that could be worth quite a bit in the future. 7/7 for 3 mana. Seems good.
Yeah,
Savage Roar, go. Oh, that's a blank. Okay.
Well, if he draws living mana in the future, it would be nice to be able to buff the tokens. But this isn't a matchup where you even are too worried about that. Usually as 2/2s, they're strong enough. There's no Drakes anymore, so you don't really have to worry about Spell Power Fan nearly as much as you had to in the past.
That's a good point. Another prep here completely. So both players drawing pretty much the last thing they wanted in their deck as of right now. I mean, the prep can have a lot more value in the future than the Innervate has for 6/0 now without living mana, but still looking pretty good. Blue Gill Warrior, not accompanied by Savage Roar, is a bit worse, but hey, we're just pushing for phase. This rogue's down to 8 health. We're pretty happy with that. And for the aggro deck, close enough.
Well, no, this is an aggro deck where close enough is not good enough. Yeah. It's not like Pirate Warrior where you get close enough and you just find it. It's not like Horseshoes where you're close enough and you still get a leaner. But here, if you're close enough, you're not going to find anything else. You're just going to have minions that kind of stick to the board and they're going to keep killing them. So this is real bad news for Xixo. A lot of these aggro token druids don't even run swipe. So stabilizing even at 4 or 5 health is oftentimes good enough for the defensive deck.
That's usually where they turn the table to as well. If you look at, which is actually why I think, we saw Purify Priest earlier, like barring, an awful opener with nothing, I think that deck has the potential to fight off the early aggression. But it looks like...
Yeah, I like taking the 2 damage here and connecting the 10.
How do you get punished, right? Because, what is that card in Xixo's hand? We're assuming it's Innervate at this point, right? Because, what else would not have been played? Mark of his Charge would have been played. Savage Roar would have been played. Power of the Wild, everything, really. So, And that's living mana off the draw.
Uh-oh. Yeah, this is what DrHippi is trying to beat by pushing the extra 10 there. He's trying to speed up his clock enough to where if his opponent draws living mana, he can still potentially win the game. He just needs to find a card he can play alongside deckhand, and then he's got 15 on the board, 16 while playing the deckhand, 2 from the deckhand, so that's 18, 19 with his dagger. So he needs any damage card.
2? Yeah.
That's not going to do it.
This rate would have been it, but questing now.
The Innervate hero power saves him. Is there any way he can stay alive on board?
From what I've calculated, I think it's going to be exact lethal for DrHippi. With the buff on the...
Isn't it 20? I don't know. I can't count.
Oh, it's 1 off? Oh,
yeah. I thought it was 1 off.
You're right. Because I was calculating if DrHippi goes for the trades on the board, he's taking exact lethal. Xixo had exactly 5. Even if you clear, 4 of the minions on the board, you're still taking 4 from the 2 remaining ones, and then from the hero power of Xixo, you just end up dying. So exact lethal for Xixo had his board been cleared up a little bit. DrHippi had no way to really prevent that, and this is the power of.
I want to talk about the questing adventures setup. I think playing the Swashbuckler on turn 1 was a little bit costly there. I think he could have gotten the questing out a turn earlier and had more effect out of it if he had held on to the Swashbuckler and then on turn 2 went coin questing, coin Swashbuckler, prep of this straight. I think it
I
was
think
just
you're right. I think you're
delaying that
correct here.
questing by one turn, I think was very expensive for him. And I don't think getting the Swashbuckler out on turn 1 up against 1/2s is very helpful. So
Yeah, we mentioned it when it happened, but that's also one of those cases where the rogue player, like, getting on the board without any follow-up is not worth it especially when you're playing the questing version. I think you're just better off holding off and trying to set up like a 5/5 instead of a 7/7, and then what that lets you do is at least take 2 to 3 more trades over the course of the entire game, and that usually saves you like 6 to 10 health with the extra 1 turn that you get to trade with. So I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down the Druid as much as possible. And it looks like mid-range Paladin from Xixo up against N'Zoth control from DrHippi.
Right, and this is a matchup I've casted a lot of times, and the win rate has been 100% for the mid-range Paladin over a sample size of, I think, about 20 games. So it's very difficult for the N'Zoth Paladin to win. And the reason why it's so difficult is because their 1/1 tokens are meaningless. And they don't really get tempo and try and push for anything ever. Whereas the mid-range Paladin's 1/1 tokens at some point get turned into Murlocs and then are always a constant threat. So you'll oftentimes see like N'Zoth Paladins have to clear boards of just 1/1 Murlocs with their huge AoEs and then not have the AoEs to respond to things after that, just because how threatening things are because of Gentle Megasaur buffing and War Leader buffing and just generally being always behind on tempo.
Yeah, that's actually a good point you bring up, is really the threat of that hero power. Like, it's not something you'd think about when you just look at the deck list. You'd say, oh, this is a lot closer than it seems. In fact, N'Zoth Paladin is probably better because it gets that refill and everything. But the really big deal is the fact that Murlocs can just become an OTK if they're left alive. And so the 1/1s end up exhausting the control Paladin out of options. Which is not really where you want to be finding yourself. N'Zoth Paladin is supposed to be the deck that outlasts and extracts value from everything. But in this case, it kind of reminds me of the old school Control Paladin versus Control Warrior, where the 1/1s did that job. They just eventually killed you. And this is kind of what the mid-range Paladin does.
Yeah, just its ability to continue buffing things. It's very like the Quartermaster Paladin back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. It's not unlike that.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes you'll see players take Getaway Kodo in these situations and be able to get value out of their minions. But he takes Repentance. He must have something on his mind that he's thinking about, some sort of late-game drop that he wants to be able to trade into efficiently. He's looking at maybe Repentance plus Gentle Megasaur next turn, set up for the turn 6 play from his opponent.
Yeah, it looks like that's
Sunkeeper or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Sunkeeper would then only trade with 1 minion instead of multiple, minions. And how much is that really scaring you? And that was a snap play. I didn't spot what the card was, but it looks like it. Yeah, I was gonna say it has to be Finja to snap play that much. Yeah, there we go. Man, that Finja. What a card, man. What a card.
Well, DrHippi doesn't happen to have Kodo.
Not in this spot.
Natural predator of the Finja.
Yeah, beasts eat Murlocs. Crabs eat Murlocs. I think pretty much everything eats Murlocs. Question is, Firebad, do you eat Murlocs?
Sometimes, decent breakfast food, good way to start the day.
Well, Xixo on the Ninja plan can get himself a kill with it, but it's not super clean.
One thing that's important, he's drawn the Vilefine Inquisitor. And not only do you not want to pull that off Finja because it's a 1/3, which is not a great amount of stats, but also you definitely want to be able to transform your hero power into generating Murlocs. So drawing it is super good. If you pull both off Finja, you can't. Divine Shield's good, Poison's good.
Divine Shield's nuts. You get to keep the Finja around and gives you the ability to pull even more Murlocs out of the deck.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You just rip a nice double War Leader off this.
Sure, let's do it. Okay, one of them. Not quite enough, but can't fight with this. And look at that. Like, the buff on Finja makes it so suddenly DrHippi is forced into a position where he has to use removal to clean up what took very little of resources for Xixo. Without equality, it's looking pretty grim.
And Repentance coming down He's expecting maybe my opponent goes for an equality clear this turn, then tries to play an 8-drop after the fact. If they try and play an 8-drop, it's going to get eaten by the Repentance. So squeezing it into this time seems fine. Also, if they try and like clear, set up Doomsayer to try and steal the tempo back, well, Doomsayer's not going to do anything because this gets Repentance. So I think that's what he's been thinking about with the Repentance has been Doomsayer. One of the best ways for the Zoth Paladin to get tempo over the mid-range Paladin is to do some sort of Consecrate clear or some sort of Wild Pyromancer or Equality clear, and then play Doomsayer. Well, if you have the Repentance out, they can't clear with Consecrate and play Doomsayer ever, so they can never steal the tempo like that.
Yeah, so now DrHippi just mitigating the most damage possible, just trying to clean out the War Leader, checked if it was Getaway Kodo / Redemption, figures out it is neither, and will play into Repentance with the Aldor. Not too big a deal in this case, it's not the secret he was the most scared of, but, Xixo still got a sizable board, card draw in the form of Curator, can get himself the second Gentle Megasaur for the follow-up. He's got himself a good
Tarim turn, so he's got a really hard read on his opponent that there's no Equality Consecrate or any sort of Equality Clear combo because his board's alive still. So just taking the value trade there and creating the biggest board he possibly can seems to be the fastest, most efficient way to kill his opponent. And even if it is met by the top decked Equality, he still has 2 bubble minions that'll live.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the Wild Pyro Consec is only good insofar as you can get those Divine Shields out of the way. But as it stands, this Karen Bloodhoof is going to have to do a little bit of work. Was there any merit to popping the Karen last turn instead of just going face? Because he could have popped it before making it 3-3, so that he never faces this spot where the Karen gets a 4-5 body on the board and trades into one of your Murlocs.
Yeah. It might have been worth doing. I don't think he was really even thinking about the potential of the Pyro Consecrate. He just saw, hey, there's no equality combo, so screw it, let's do it, let's kill him. And now it's a bit awkward.
Yeah, popping it might have been slightly better, but at the end of the day, you can't really assume that that's going to be the case. You feel pretty safe, I think, behind your Tarim, but without equality even, the Pyro did a ton of work, cleaned up most of the minions there, set up the kill with the True Silver, and now Xixo is going to have to claw his way back in with limited amount of damage output, unless he picks up some more Murloc board floods that don't get met with any resistance.
Well, Curator does just that. You get a Gentle Megasaur every time and an additional Murloc. So that plus the hero power is already a Murloc board flood. Hero power, play the Murloc off Curator, Gentle Megasaur, buff them up, close the game out. So such a powerful combo play there, just drawing a Murloc and something that synergizes with a Murloc.
Well, that's going to be a little bit awkward. DrHippi's got a few plays available if he wants to get cute. He can play Wild Pyromancer, Sparker Steed the 1-1 after trading with the Pyro, kills the 4-6, gets the trade afterwards. Lots of little cute plays can be made, but I think it's just a lot cleaner to go for the, keeping the Pyro alive over the 1-1.
Yeah, he gets to clear the whole board.
Yeah. A little bit of vulnerability to Consecration, but at the end of the day, if that happens, that slows down the opponent by a sizable amount, so that's okay. And that Tyrion off the draw here for Xixo, even if the Murlocs get defused, that's a big deal. And the perfect combination of cards to answer the Stegodon. Ouch.
Yeah, you can see how, like, the N'Zoth Paladin's technically a higher value deck, right? It's supposed to generate outvalue his opponent with more cards over time because it has bigger things in its deck. It's got, like, Lay on Hands and N'Zoth and Rag Lightlord and all that stuff. But the end result here is Xixo has a higher quality hand at the moment than DrHippi does because of just how much value you actually kind of generate through your tempo. Like, they're resources that go back and forth and kind of trade with each other over time because DrHippi has had to use things inefficiently to respond to the tempo that Xixo has generated, which lowers the amount of value his deck has.
It really comes down to synergy, too, because if you look at Xixo's deck, it's, packed full with synergies that interact off of each other. And then you look at DrHippi's deck, and every minion in there that has Death Rattle is synergizing with one piece, and that's the top end. That's N'Zoth. That's about the only synergy you'll find. There's sometimes, the Kodo, Outdoor Peacekeeper, Dirty Rat, Equality, Pyro. But those are responsive synergies. They're not proactive. And as a result of that, you can't really capitalize on them as much. So you're always waiting for the opponent to establish tempo to then respond, which means you're one step behind all the way. Which is why people tend to favor, the more mid-rangey builds over the control builds. And I mean, barring those hyper aggro lineups, like your control deck is not targeting anything specific. So, yeah, I mean, that's a bit rough.
When you see your opponent flat out a desperation play like this, what does that tell you? It tells you probably don't have an equality combo, because otherwise they would do something better than this with their turn.
Well, Spiker's Steed.
Yeah, seeing the Aldor used, putting the Spiker's Steed is like a very, very strong, powerful way to abuse Tyrion's large health pool and the fact that it has taunt. So I like that coming down for Xixo. When you see your Tyrion get Aldored, you 100% know they don't have a silence in their hand. So you're not really afraid of the double silence getting you. I like it.
Losing double the value and everything in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Plus, DrHippi could pick up the equality. You know, that would be a pretty big deal. But you still have the double swings from Ashbringer. And that's the equality from DrHippi.
Yeah, that's the punish for Xixo's play there. Xixo kind of assumed there's no quality at DrHippi's hand and went all face with the minions rather than taking the trades, just because of how desperate and awkward DrHippi's development was last turn. And even though his read was correct, the top deck from Hippie is going to help him a lot here.
Yeah, and DrHippi is going to be able to stay safe. He's got Ragnaros Lightlord, pulls out the biggest minion in the hand, and that means the equality is going to do maximum damage to this board. He's going to get himself a card draw, too, on the back of the Acolyte of Pain, and he's going to be out of range of the lethal. The problem is now there's still a Stegodon on this board, right? Let's not forget that. With an Ashbringer behind it, you know, you're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, the Ashbringer's the real problem. That thing hurts.
Yeah. 15 damage off a Death Rattle. Seems about right.
Turns you into ash. DrHippi is saying, just gonna play the True Silver and pass. Doesn't want to risk dirty redding out something large.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that. There's no reason to really commit to anything drastic. Now, if you're 6-0, you've seen the equality, but it came off the top, so you've kept track of the cards. You made a really good read early that there was no chance for another one being there, so no real reason to worry about the safety of your minions. Either way, at this point, you're probably just fine no matter what happens. Get the extra Murloc out there. General Megasaur represents more damage. DrHippi is going to need a miracle here to come back.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yep. Can't really think of anything in this deck that helps him. Does that even do it? I don't think so.
It's cute. No. But
doesn't do very much in that spot. Let's just be honest.
Maybe alongside Dirty Red, maybe something could happen here.
Okay, sure. If you pull out like a tiny minion, if this were like a 2-1 instead, and then you pull out the Rag Lightlord. Okay, would that have been enough? 11? No, it's still dead. So the 2-1. Yeah, still dead.
Doesn't matter what he does, man. It's all over. Well, does Tyrion save him? No.
No, it does not save him. It does very little. Xixo can just face tank it. It's got the weapon and everything. So that really was kind of a highlight of why Controlled Paladin is, you know, especially the N'Zoth versions. You know, we've seen some of them that err on the mid-range side that have some more control elements. Like Xixo's list is actually quite on the slower side of the mid-range list, I think. I don't know how many steeds he runs or if...
It looks to me as though it's the 2 1-drop version of the mid-range list. Well, no, we saw it actually, the Caller as well. So it's just the 4 1-drop mid-range list, right? It doesn't seem to have Harrison Jones. It had Kodo and Finja in the 5 slot. Oftentimes there's only 2 5s. Some people go for the 5 package, but then you can't fit in all 4 1s.
Sure.
But we saw all 4 1s there, so just the standard, all the good cards, and a double Murloc Tide Caller. 1/2s that grow. Jade Druid versus Secret Mage. DrHippi does not want to reveal too much information about his decks, so what he's doing here, since deck lists are not revealed in the tournament, he is queuing his worst matchup first. So we can kind of expect a 3-0 sweep to be potentially likely unless DrHippi gets a good hand and Xixo gets a bad hand, as Secret Mage very favored versus Jade Druid. But hand from Xixo, not looking fantastic.
I think one of the big reasons too is that the amount of tempo that the Mage generates it's always an issue for the Druid player who is not given the time to set up his own. In this spot though, I feel like I was going to say DrHippi not facing off against a Mana Worm early is doing okay, but never mind. That just changed. Because I think he had a decent chance with the hand that he had if he just picked up like a 4-drop Jade Spirit and then started curving into Jade Behemoth. That could very well stabilize him.
That's a good draw.
Yeah. Probably the best, possibly. Jade Spirit was not bad. Sets up the bigger Jades, but... Unless you kill the Mana Worm on turn 5 with the Tar Creeper, but all of these are really just things you need to find.
Oh man, double Crystal Runner in those secrets.
We're talking about a bad hand, right? This is kind of one of those. This is...
It's bad, but it's not that bad. You at least have the Mana Worm, but it's pretty bad. I would expect the Druid to start pulling away soon. He's got nice Jade curve.
Exactly, like that Jade Spirit with the Jade Behemoth and the ramp that he had were what he was looking for. If there was no secret on the Xixo side, and there isn't, just secret synergy with nothing to go with it, this could be how DrHippi just races ahead. I mean, he's got the Jade Behemoth, he's got the Earthen Scales to stay out of range, he's got the Gadget's Hand to start drawing with the Earthen Scales. DrHippi's got pretty much everything he's looking for. How much do you respect that Ethereal Arcanist?
Well, when they play it as a 4-mana 3/3, that means you usually don't have very many secrets in their hand, especially since the Sorcerer's Apprentice would have discounted the cost of a secret if Xixo had one. So I would just play the Behemoth to set up the trade.
Okay, so you would not like worry about some kind of like secret development to ping into suddenly you fall behind. 'Cause, I mean, you do have a decent turn here, even if you double trade with Tar Creeper. Just play Tar Creeper, Hero Power. Like, the odds of you getting blown out by whatever he does next turn are pretty slim. Yeah, Jade Behemoth's just an okay card if you want to play.
He's going to go with Earthen Scales, it looks like, and take the trade. He fears the minion. Or is he just going to trade with the Hero Power?
Oh, probably
I like trade with the Hero Power as much because we're leaving nothing behind. So if our opponent tries to develop something, we now have a 1/5 to respond with it and no removal in our hand. So we're really banking on the fact that Xixo has no minions. So I honestly kind of hate this play from DrHippi.
Assuming that there's not going to be any minions?
Yeah, he's just assuming that there's no... Somehow he's got to read that Xixo has no minions in his hand. Because if Xixo plays a minion, you have a 1/5 to contest it now, which is a lot worse than having a 3/6 and a 3/3.
Sure. Fair enough.
But the Arcanist would turn into a 5/5, so works out for him.
Now the counterspell not getting popped by DrHippi probably has a decent idea of what that could be. So Primordial Glyph, of course, can throw every calculation out the window. And as it stands, seeing this 2-mana 5/5 just kind of consolidates the assumption that DrHippi made that there were no secrets in the initial hand, and it just looks so awkward for Xixo. He's got the burn, but the Druid's nowhere near dead. He's got a board that is very easily contested by what the Druid does. Man, that's just no place you want to be as the Secret Mage.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him to close out this game. And DrHippi's got some internal conflict right now. Another secret has just been played, so he's worried about playing this Primordial Drake into a potential mirror entity. He's thinking, how do I best play around the secrets where I can keep my board strong enough where I don't lose, and I can play around it enough to where I don't just give him a win by just giving him a 4/8.
All right, with DrHippi trying to check for secrets. Yeah, he's just checking for secrets and assumes he knows what's going on here. Doesn't worry at all about...
Even if I give him a free 4/8, I'm going to win anyway. Which...
Hey, I mean, how common is that anyway, right? Like, that's the question in those decks. You tend to see Counterspell every time. Mirror Entity has not been present in every single one of these lists.
Really? I would have thought Mirror Entity would be one of the more common ones. I know Counterspell's got to be the most common one.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'd say Mirror Entity is probably the second most common one I've seen. And then Spellbender, the third most common. Things I never see. I never see Vaporize. I never see Mana Bind. I would have thought that would kind of make the cut in some spots. But
I saw Mana Bind actually being played alongside Counterspell. So they run like 3 Counterspell-ish secrets. 4 with Spellbender. They run like Spellbender, Mana Bind, plus double Counterspell. And then they run like the One of Eyes block and Potion of Polymorph. Basically, the goal of that one list is just to go crazy on the uncertainty factor of your opponent, which is something that a lot of people will misplay into. Like, it's easy to defuse high mains if you keep your Potion of Polymorph at the right time, and some matchups are just made easier by that. But this one looks like a very standard one. Probably Mirror Entity is in that deck, as you said, for 6-0.
Mm-hmm. The only ones I've seen that cut Mirror Entity are the ones that are designed to target Quest Rogue, because Mirror Entity kind of blows versus Quest Rogue. And the ones that target
Yeah.
Quest Rogue, you want to have like double Potion of Polymorph so you can ruin their bounce effects, and double counterspell so you can counterspell Shadow Steps in the quest. And they just destroy Quest Rogue because they can never complete the quest, and even if they do, it gets counterspelled.
Yeah, that's pretty much what that list, I alluded to, is trying to do. So that's pretty much the general idea. I don't think Xixo is targeting that Quest Rogue, though, with the lineup.
I don't think he is. I think it's a kind of a soft target, so he doesn't have the quests, he doesn't have the secrets designed to target it, but he's still playing aggressive decks, which will do well versus Quest Rogue. So it's like a softer target rather than a hard target, because those secrets are honestly just bad when you include double Potion of Polymorph and stuff like that. It only is favorable in that one matchup. But Miracle Rogue coming out for DrHippi up against the Secret Mage. Miracle Rogue's a deck that can diffuse a lot of the secrets very easily. They have small minions in the form of the Pirates and Thalnos to throw into Mirror Entities and Potion of Polymorphs, and cheap spells that they can use to break the counter spells.
Yeah, they still need to find their tempo turns, though. So you're still looking to get those preparations. You're still looking to get those saps on the minions that you don't want to stick around. You have the removal, but the problem is that the more of it you expend, the tougher it is to really get yourself back on. Starting with the coin, though, is a pretty big deal, as you get that extra spell again to defuse those little traps that the Secret Mage is trying to set up for you, and gives you some more fuel going forward. Oh, Sherazin, hello.
Yeah, Sherazan's an interesting card. A lot of people in the beginning were really hot on Sherazin, saying it's one of the better cards in the set and it's so powerful. And as the game is sped up and people have had to use more defensive tools quicker and they can't save as much for Sherazin, a lot of players have actually been cutting it. So it's interesting to see it appear in DrHippi's deck. Well, I guess the reason why it's here is because DrHippi's targeting control. And when you're targeting control, Sherazan's really good.
Looks like Xixo. Okay, that's a slightly better hand than he had earlier. I mean, double Apprentice, for the long term, just guaranteeing that he has a secret from Archaeologist really is the important part. Medivh's Valley gives him some leverage against the early game minions that the opponents play. Sherazin, especially when the coin is in the rogue's hand, you can guarantee that Medivh's Valley is going to land on a target. And then you force the rogue to have a sequence of 4 cards to really enable to be enabled. That's a really big ask early in a game like this. That Sherazin's going to be dormant for a while, I think, without a prep.
He can make it come out this turn if he wants.
Sure. You'd go ahead and play the Razor Petal, coin, everything.
But yeah, it's crazy expensive to do so.
Yeah. Huh. Could still do it. we can still do it.
With Gadget in hand, I think it's a little bit of... Yeah, you might want to pump the brakes. And he's trying to figure out what the secret is still. Number 1 on his mind has to be Mirror Entity. He's played a spell. He's taken a trade. So he's thinking like Mirror Entity or Ice Block at this point. Because he knows it's not Counterspell. And in reality, it's Spellbender.
It's kind of hard to make that read, though. As I said, like Spellbender's been in and out of decks. And oftentimes you tend to see it when it comes out of Primordial Glyph, right? Like it's not going to be a card you expect to be main decked in most Mage lists, but it's really helpful. We're talking about the aggro Druid matchup earlier. That's one of the decks in which you almost always land on the Mark of your Charge when you get it off early. So
He just took Pyros instead of Firelands Portal. What do you make of that?
I'm guessing he's got plans for that prep that do not involve the Firelands Portal, but maybe he's reading it Spellbender and he's just thinking, screw this is not worth it.
Then maybe
if he's reading into Spellbender, that's exactly why he's making this play instead, but that means Eviscerate's going to have to find a face connection. Goodness gracious, 3-mana Flame Strike. What is this madness? Am I looking at Exodia Mage here? What is this?
That was a pretty good turn.
That was insane.
Yeah, being able to copy the discounts and just do wacky stuff.
Oh, man.
DrHippi's wishing he still had that Spell Power fan.
Seemed good. Oh, Mana Worm, that's cute.
It's a good rogue card.
Now, the problem we've got is we know there's a Spellbender there. At least we assume there is one. What do we make of that? Like, how do we defuse it? Do we go for Razor Petal to just open the dents? And
Razor Petal causes a 1/2 to get summoned, but you do able to get rid of one of the 3/2s with Eviscerate later on.
Yeah.
Counterfeit coin. He's just trying to play all of the minions this turn. And save
I
all
don't
the
blame
spells
him. I
for
mean, if he
gadget.
can just defuse this board, he's gonna be okay.
This is going to play very heavily into 2-mana Flame Strike.
Never thought I'd say those words. Oh, this is gonna play very heavily into 2-mana Flame Strike. What a day, Firebat. What a day.
Man.
Goodness gracious. So.
Oh, it's going to be 3 mana now. He's going to defuse one of the Sorcerer's Apprentices.
Good enough.
His hand is a little lackluster. He was unable to cycle any of the stuff with Gadget because it was just too quick. And he's going to be dead.
That Flame Strike is going to sting. It came out of a glyph, too.
Ouch.
So, for all that's worth, you know, DrHippi, despite everything he tried, is still going to be back to square one with the Dormant Sherazin facing down 2 Apprentices and a Mage packed with burn spells. I don't think that's where you want to be. Now, DrHippi doesn't have any spells to run with the Gadded Sand. He's going to have to draw some miracle card like Cone of Cold. Pyromancer is just not it. I mean, it's cute, but in this case, it's no better than Pyros, really. Well,
ouch.
Do we just pull the trigger on that burn? I think we do.
You start burning the face. You burn it very good. You have a Pyroblast to finish, and it's fine. You might hit the 5/5 just because board control. I mean, your minion's been sticking this long. Screw that,
my
right?
God.
Wow, Red Mana Worm's really good in Mage.
Yeah.
When you can't kill your stuff. Set up lethal for next turn with the Pyroblast.
At least it's not a 2-mana Pyroblast. Okay, we can cycle a card with Gaddistan. Let's do it. We're looking
one
for
counterfeit coin,
backstab.
one prep, one backstab.
Let's go. Nope.
Miss.
That didn't miracle at all.
He's making the correct facial expression for the situation.
DrHippi, thanks. 0 mana 5/5. That just triggers some degree of PTSD in me. I'm not sure why. Like I've seen this before.
Did Xixo just BM and not take any of his attacks?
No, Xixo.
Ouch.
This is so wrong.
Oh,
but
man.
so right at the same time.
That's so rude.
How do you feel about that, Firebat?
I mean, you can't even make the excuse that, like, it's game, early on, you're trying to get a psychological advantage over your opponent. This is the last game, so when he wins this, he doesn't play DrHippi anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not for a psychological advantage, it's just he finds it fun.
It's brutality. That's really just
brutality,
what it is.
yeah. I enjoy it
Okay,
as well.
so do we pass the turn again if we're 6? So do we just commit? I think we do. We just kind of commit here. And we do commit. DrHippi getting disrespected. Hopefully he plays some kind of Eater of Secrets in there. Some form of healing that no one will expect, but
he plays Eater of Secrets in this deck.
Yeah, but
we've seen it.
He could win. He could get Cold Blood into
technically
Cold Blood
win.
in Abyss. I didn't do the math on this.
He did draw the Eater of Secrets. He is still dead. I mean, when you tech your Mage to try and beat, or you tech your Rogue to try and beat Mage, and then they're able to pass 2 turns and still kill you, you question your deck building.
You question whether or not targeting it even made sense in the first place, right?
I don't know if he's targeting it, per se. It's just kind of like giving his Rogue a chance, But,
DrHippi knows as a Pyroblast, like, you would never get BM'd that badly if there were no Pyroblasts, so you have to assume you're just dead to whatever Xixo drew earlier and passed a few turns for. So you're taking that 10 to the face. Admittedly, you were telegraphed that a few turns ago. Well played, he says, laughing about the BM. Oh, man. That was good-hearted.
That's fun.
We need a little bit more of that in Hearthstone.
I mean, Xixo, honestly, is probably going to get a lot of hate for this on the internet because people just love to hate Xixo. But he's really such a nice guy in person, and he just likes doing funny stuff like this. He's not trying to be a dick or anything. He's actually, like, one of the nicest people, I think, in the Hearthstone scene. He's just very blunt a lot of times, and that can cost him.
Yeah, it's kind of like ECOP, right? They've got this thing going on where people just have this image of them that they're just very unprofessional or BM everyone. Truth is, that's just not the case. They're just actually super nice guys. Anyway, 3-1 for Xixo in the series up against DrHippi. So DrHippi is going to be going home after this glorious BM. I'm sure that's going to make the Reddit highlights for some reason. I don't know. Just get that weird vibe.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Just skipping 2 turns in a high-level tournament game against your opponent's deck that's trying to target Mage while you're playing Mage.
Leaving the Gadatan up because whatever. Doesn't matter.
Man. You don't have
it would
have
have been so sick if there had been a punish, though. Imagine the double Cold Blood into Abyss into Eater of Secrets. I don't even think that was enough. I didn't do the math.
I don't think it was enough either.
They
get the extra buff from the questing, so they're each of those is like a 5, and then the Eater comes down for a 1. So 16 additional damage. I think there was like 8 on the board.
8 on board. Yeah, it's not enough.
Like
it was
24.
like 5 off.
Yeah.
Would have to hallucinate something. Now that would have done. So.
He had 1 hallucination left. Both Swashbucklers played, so he had some chances for outs, but obviously nearing 0% chance.
Would have been good to see. That being said, guys, we'll be taking a short break and be back with the next match of the day. We're like 5 BO5s today to cast for you guys, and we've got already 3 of them completed, which is a pretty quick day. We've had 2 sweeps to start the day off, which is rather uncommon in these types of events. Naria versus Orange, and Zile versus Stan Sivka will be coming up later. We've seen Orange play a little bit earlier. We've seen Sivka play, but Zile and Naria have not played yet. So we'll be right back, guys. Stay tuned for more action.